So, have you ever had someone apologize to you so much, maybe even crying, that suddenly you felt like the bad guy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a terrible, deeply confusing feeling.
Right. Like you start out as the person who was wronged. Maybe they
Uh,
spilled coffee on your favorite shirt, or I don't know, they completely forgot to pick you up from the airport, and you're sitting there holding the inconvenience.
exactly. You're the one who was actually put out.
Yeah. But then within like 3 minutes of their frantic, breathless apologizing, the entire dynamic just flips.
It completely flips.
They're berating themselves, calling themselves stupid, maybe literally weeping, and suddenly you're the one comforting them. You're like patting their back, telling them it's really not a big deal, and desperately trying to make them feel better about the very thing they did to hurt you.
It really is one of the most disorienting social experiences we go through. You walk into the interaction holding a legitimate grievance, and you walk out of it feeling emotionally exhausted, vaguely guilty, and, completely robbed of your right to be upset.
Yes, exactly. Because usually when we think of an apology, we think of it as a basic social fix. It's supposed to be the social glue.
Right. A simple mechanism.
You bump into someone in the hallway, you say, "I'm sorry." They say, "No problem." The social contract is instantly repaired, and you both move on with your day. It's supposed to be clean.
It's meant to be a bridge, really. In behavioral psychology, a healthy apology is a straightforward mechanism for repairing a tiny rupture in a relationship.
A bridge. I like that.
Yeah, it is an acknowledgement of reality. It tells the other person, I recognize that my actions negatively impacted your reality, and I regret that fact. But it requires a level of emotional maturity.
Because you have to put your own ego aside.
Exactly. It requires centering the injured party's experience above your own ego.
But then you step into the territory we are exploring today on this deep dive, and suddenly that bridge is completely on fire. We are looking at a psychological landscape that is incredibly dark, surprisingly heavy, and honestly, a little bit terrifying to navigate.
It really gets into some heavy territory.
It does. Today, we are going deep into the mechanics of extreme self-denial. Based on some really fascinating psychological notes and articles we've been reviewing, we know you. We know you are a learner, someone who wants to understand the complex emotional machinery driving everyday life,
And you're driven to figure out what makes people tick.
especially when those people are acting in ways that seem, entirely irrational or overwhelmingly intense.
And this topic is the definition of irrational, well, at least on the surface.
Mm.
We are examining the hidden psychology of over-apologizing and what happens when that simple social bridge morphs into an impenetrable wall.
A wall that just traps you.
Right. We are going to decode why apologies can actually turn into a subconscious form of revenge.
Which is wild to think about.
It is wild. And we'll look at how to handle people who use alarming, extreme, self-deprecating language scenarios where someone makes a minor mistake and literally says, I should just die.
Yeah, those moments just freeze you.
They absolutely do. And finally, we're going to dive into how the very act of how you forgive can fundamentally alter a person's psychological trajectory.
It is intense material, but the mission today is highly practical. We want to decode exactly why being repeatedly apologized to feels so physically suffocating.
We need to uncover the hidden motives behind that extreme self-denial.
And most importantly, we are going to arm you with specific, highly counterintuitive phrases and conversational strategies to de-escalate these intense interactions without, sacrificing your own boundaries.
That's the key, protecting your boundaries while navigating their crisis.
Exactly. So before we look at the life or death language, we have to start at the tipping point. We have to understand the exact moment a normal, healthy apology turns into something toxic.
Well, the tipping point is really all about momentum and repetition. It starts with that natural reflex we just discussed.
The hallway book.
Right, the hallway bump. When we cause an inconvenience, the healthy reflex is to apologize to build the bridge. But the phenomenon of the endless loop occurs when the apology refuses to stop after that initial, appropriate reflex.
Just keeps going.
It just keeps cycling. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. I'm so stupid. You must hate me. I wouldn't blame you if you never spoke to me again.
Oh man, just hearing you say that stresses me out.
Right, because when you hear that cadence, a completely new, highly complex emotional mechanism has hijacked the interaction.
The notes we're looking at explicitly say the bridge twists into a wall.
Yeah.
And it really does feel like a wall. But let's look at the physics of that interaction. Why does it feel like a wall?
What do you mean by the physics of it?
Like, what is actually happening in the nervous system of the receiver when someone is just aggressively relentlessly apologizing at them? Because I've been on the receiving end of this, and it feels like a physical weight on your chest. You feel cornered.
You feel cornered because you are being actively managed. What's fascinating here is the psychological shift taking place beneath the actual words.
Okay, unpack that for us.
In that endless loop, the apology fundamentally stops being about acknowledging your feelings. It ceases to be about your stepped-on foot or your ruined shirt.
So what is it about then?
Instead, the apology becomes a tool for the apologizer to punish themselves in order to extract forgiveness from you.
Extract forgiveness. I mean, that phrasing makes it sound almost predatory.
Yeah.
Sounds like an emotional heist.
That is precisely what it is, an emotional heist. The apologizer believes, often entirely unconsciously, that if they just suffer enough in front of you, you will be forced to absolve them.
Wow.
The act of apologizing becomes the end goal itself. They are no longer apologizing to make you feel better.
They're doing it to make themselves feel better.
Yes, by creating a scenario where you have no social choice but to say, it's okay, really don't worry about it. And the result of that extraction is that the apologizer's internal pain, their shame, is forcefully swapped into your lap.
I really want to visualize this because it's such a bizarre transfer of energy. It's like someone accidentally stepping on your toe, but to make up for it, they pull out a hammer and start violently hitting themselves in the leg.
That is a very visceral analogy.
Right. But suddenly your injured toe doesn't matter at all. You're in pain, sure, but you completely forget about your own grievance because you just desperately want them to stop hurting themselves with a hammer.
Exactly. The sheer spectacle of their self-flagellation overrides your right to be upset.
You are instantly forced to pivot from being the injured party to becoming this panicked, uncomfortable caretaker.
And that pivot is exactly what creates the heavy, suffocating burden for the receiver. The burden comes from the sudden, unconsented shift in responsibility.
Yeah, that's the word. You didn't ask for that job.
You didn't walk into that room asking to be responsible for this person's emotional regulation, but by creating a crisis of self-hatred right in front of you, they have made you responsible for their immediate emotional survival.
Because if you don't forgive them, if you hold on to your entirely valid annoyance about the spilled coffee, you are now positioned as the cruel, heartless person letting them suffer in agony.
Exactly. They have effectively trapped you in a lose-lose situation.
Which means the relentless apology isn't an act of submission at all. It's a hidden form of control.
It is entirely about control, even if they don't realize they're doing it.
If over-apologizing makes the receiver so incredibly uncomfortable, we have to look at the unconscious motive of the person doing it. Because they aren't just being hyper-empathetic or too nice. There is a sharp edge to this behavior.
There are absolutely hidden blades here. The source material is very clear about this. Excessive apologies are rarely about the person receiving them.
Then what are they hiding?
They almost always hide the apologizer's wounded pride, an inability to process their own shame, and a sense of having nowhere for their internal anger to go. And perhaps most surprisingly to people who haven't studied this dynamic, excessive apologies can mask a subconscious desire for revenge.
Wait, revenge? That feels entirely contradictory. How can saying I'm sorry possibly function as a form of revenge against the person you wronged?
It functions as revenge through martyrdom. It is a way of completely neutralizing the other person's power in the dynamic. Let's look at a very specific, relatable example from the text that highlights this beautifully.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine a business or a service provider makes a significant mistake. Say, a high-end restaurant completely botches your anniversary dinner. They bring out the wrong food, it's cold, the service is terrible.
A total disaster of a night.
Right. And the manager comes over, visibly distressed, and says, I am so unbelievably sorry. We have ruined your night. I am going to make this entire 3-course meal completely free, and I am giving you vouchers for your next 3 meals to be completely on the house.
Honestly, if I'm the customer, my immediate surface-level reaction is amazing. We get free food.
Most people would feel that way initially.
But if we look at the mechanics of control we just discussed, this is highly dangerous territory for the relationship, isn't it?
It is incredibly precarious because extreme, excessive self-sacrifice acts as a silent pressure to shut the other person up. Let's dissect that make it free scenario.
Yeah, let's break it down.
While it certainly can spring from a place of pure, unadulterated hospitality in the realm of interpersonal psychology, it frequently acts as an unconscious negotiation tactic.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So the manager isn't just trying to make it right. They are buying something else.
They are purchasing your silence, your ongoing guilt, and their own immediate redemption. By placing a massive unpayable debt on you, the receiver, the apologizer, silently seizes control of the relationship's power
That's
dynamics.
unpayable debt. That's a heavy phrase.
Think about it. The managers isn't just saying sorry. They are overcompensating to such an extreme degree that they tip the scales entirely in the opposite direction.
So they go from being in the wrong to suddenly being the grand benefactor.
Exactly. If you swallow this guilt and just accept the massive freebie without another word, a permanent imbalance is formed. One party, you will always carry a heavy, unspoken debt in that relationship.
I see exactly what you mean. We are socially conditioned to view self-sacrifice as a pure, noble good. Like, we are taught that giving up your own comfort or profits for someone else is the absolute height of morality.
Right, it's seen as a virtue.
But when it's deployed in this context, the text calls it a silent pressure. It's basically the manager saying, look at how much I am bleeding for you. Look at how much revenue I am losing to make you happy. How dare you still be mad at me?
And that is the revenge aspect. It completely invalidates any lingering frustration the injured party might have.
Oh, wow. It really does.
If you complain about the cold food to your friends the next day, but you have to add, yeah, but the manager gave us 4 free meals, you suddenly look like an ungrateful monster.
You literally can't complain anymore without looking like a jerk.
The apologizer has effectively insulated themselves from any further criticism by building an impenetrable fortress of extreme generosity. You are no longer allowed to be a victim of their mistake.
But let me challenge this because this puts the average person in a really tough spot. How is a normal person navigating daily life supposed to know the difference between sincere compensation and a subconscious power grab?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because, like, if my dry cleaner ruins my suit and offers to pay for it out of their own pocket because they feel terrible, I don't want to stand there at the counter analyzing their subconscious desire for martyrdom. I just want my suit replaced.
And you shouldn't have to overanalyze every interaction.
Right, so where is the line between good customer service and an emotional hostage situation?
It is a critical distinction, and it requires tuning into a frequency most of us ignore. The text explicitly warns receivers not to take these offers purely at face value. You cannot just react to the surface-level words or the monetary value of the offer.
So what do I do instead?
You have to maintain the mental bandwidth to imagine the true heart and motive behind the words. You must look past the sheer volume and intensity of the apology.
Okay, so what is the tell? If the words, I'm sorry, sound exactly the same, what am I looking for in the subtext?
You are looking at proportionality and the emotional aftermath. A sincere apology and sincere compensation seeks to restore balance. It aims to bring the scale back to zero.
Making things even again.
Right. Manipulative apologies, even when the person doing it is entirely unaware of their own manipulation, seek to tip the scale entirely in the other direction. The tell is the emotional hangover you experience after the interaction.
Emotional hangover, I like that term.
If accepting their offer makes you feel weirdly indebted, anxious, trapped, or like you owe them a massive favor down the line, your intuition is accurately signaling that a power dynamic has just shifted. The burden of guilt has been successfully transferred from them to you.
The emotional hangover. That is such a clarifying concept. If you walk away from receiving an apology feeling significantly worse, heavier, and more anxious than before they apologized, the mechanics of that apology were breaking.
The bridge was actually a trapdoor.
A trapdoor.
Oh.
And this manipulative power dynamic, this subconscious shifting of guilt, it becomes infinitely more intense and significantly harder to navigate when the apologizer escalates things past free meals and favors, right?
Oh, absolutely. We are moving now from everyday guilt trips and overcompensation to what the source material identifies as the ultimate flashing red SOS signal.
We are talking about the moment the apologizer leaps past normal hyperbole and begins making literal existential threats against themselves.
Extreme self-denial.
We are talking about extreme, highly disturbing language. Things like someone making a minor error and responding with, I'll never do it again until I die. Or in the most extreme cases highlighted in the text, literally saying, just kill me, I'm worthless.
It is incredibly jarring to even hear those phrases spoken aloud in a casual context, let alone directed at you over a small mistake. It instantly drops the temperature in the room.
It's terrifying.
But to handle this without being pulled into the vortex, we have to understand what is happening cognitively and neurologically when someone resorts to that language over a minor infraction. This language indicates that the apologizer's self-evaluation has hit absolute rock
Oh,
bottom.
just completely hollowed out.
Their internal sense of worth has plummeted to zero in a matter of seconds. They are entirely negating their own existence over a single, often trivial mistake.
It is paralyzing. If a coworker misses a minor deadline, or a friend spills a glass of water on your rug, and their immediate response is to stare at the floor and say, "I am so stupid, just kill me," your brain absolutely freezes.
Because you're suddenly staring at a crisis.
Right. We do not have a social script for that in
Hmm.
polite society. You
Yeah.
can't just say, "No problem, just use a paper towel."
The freeze response you experience is completely natural because you are suddenly staring at a psychological emergency. This extreme language is a mental SOS. But it is crucial to recognize a vital distinction here that the text emphasizes.
What's the distinction?
When people use this language in these specific over-apologizing contexts, they are almost never asking for actual physical harm. They are not asking you to end their life. And conversely, they aren't even promising literal behavioral perfection when they say, "I'll never make a mistake again until I die."
So if the words don't mean the literal words, what is the translation? What are they actually trying to communicate when they throw their own life on the table?
They are trying to vocalize an internal psychological terror that they simply do not have normal, regulated emotional vocabulary for.
Because they're panicking.
In that moment, their prefrontal cortex, the logical, regulating part of the brain, has been hijacked by the amygdala. They are experiencing a catastrophic, overwhelming collapse of self-esteem.
That sounds exhausting for them, honestly.
It is. The shame is so entirely unbearable, and their ability to self-soothe is so non-existent that the only vocabulary they have left to express the sheer magnitude of their internal pain is the absolute binary vocabulary of life and death. It's a distress flare fired from the bottom of a very dark emotional pit.
But look at the impossible bind that puts the listener in. Think
Yeah.
about the mechanics of responding to that. If someone says, "I made a typo in the presentation, I'm so worthless, just kill me," how do you navigate that?
It's a minefield.
It really is. Because if you immediately soften and say, "Oh my gosh, no, it's totally okay, please don't say that, you're great," you might actually be validating their extreme reaction.
You are inadvertently teaching their nervous system that threatening their own existence is a highly effective, viable way to extract the reassurance they crave.
You're rewarding the extortion.
Yes, you are positively reinforcing the nuclear option.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you hold your boundary, get annoyed, and say, "Stop being so dramatic, it's just a typo, but you still need to fix it," you risk pushing them further into their despair.
You confirm their core, terrifying fear that they are, in fact, a burden and a failure.
You punish them when they are already actively bleeding out emotionally. It feels like an inescapable trap.
It is an inescapable trap, but only if you agree to play by the rules they have unconsciously set up in that moment.
What do you mean?
Well, you are assuming you have to choose between total submission to their drama or harsh rejection of their pain. But the material provides a highly specific, slightly eccentric, but brilliant response strategy.
A way out of the trap.
Exactly. Highly effective psychological de-escalation requires refusing the binary altogether. You do not brush it off with a coddling, "It's okay," nor do you affirm their self-hatred by expressing disgust. Instead, you meet them exactly where they are. You touch upon the weight of life itself, but you fundamentally flip the orientation of the threat.
Okay, this is where the counter strategies become fascinating. The source text gives a specific script for this exact scenario, and when I first read it, I thought it was completely bizarre.
It is definitely unusual.
But the more you unpack it, the more brilliant it is. Let's look at the script. If someone spirals over a mistake and says something extreme like, "Kill me," the text suggests responding by saying, "Understood, but if the same thing happens again, I will die first, so please follow me then."
It sounds incredibly theatrical.
It sounds like dialogue from an anime or a dramatic play, not something you say in an office break room.
Right. But we have to break down exactly why this highly jarring response works on a deep psychological level. When someone is trapped in that spiral of extreme self-denial, they are caught in an intense tunnel vision of their own worthlessness.
They can't see anything else.
Their reality has shrunk down to nothing but their mistake and their shame. By saying, "I will die first, so please follow me," you are executing several highly effective psychological interventions simultaneously. First, you completely change the angle of the conversation. You shatter the script they were expecting.
It is the ultimate pattern interrupt. They are bracing for you to either comfort them or scold them. By introducing your own hypothetical demise, you short-circuit their expectation.
Exactly. A massive pattern interrupt forces their brain to momentarily pause the shame spiral just to process the confusing new information.
That makes total sense.
Second, and much more importantly, your response refuses to allow life to be used as a cheap penalty token. The apologizer is attempting to toss their entire existence on the negotiating table as a bargaining chip to pay for a spilled coffee or a typo.
Which is crazy when you say it out loud.
It is an absurd inflation of the stakes. By stepping in and saying, no, if a life is truly demanded by this mistake, it will be mine first, you are entirely stripping them of that bargaining chip. You are mirroring the absolute absurdity of the stakes they've created, but you are doing it without mocking or belittling them.
You are stepping into the ring with them. It's like you're communicating. I see exactly how incredibly high you've raised the stakes. I see the life or death panic you are in. I will meet you at that exact altitude, but I absolutely will not let you be the victim here.
You're taking the victim card away.
And the crucial part of that script is the second half. So please follow me then. It completely rewires the isolation they are feeling, doesn't it?
That is the anchor of the entire strategy. Please follow me then. It binds your fates together. It forcefully asserts a shared existence and deep empathy.
That's like saying we're in this together.
It communicates, we are in this together. You are not alone in this failure. If this minor mistake is truly a matter of life and death, then it's a matter of life and death for both of us. It shocks them out of their self-destructive spiral by suddenly, unexpectedly, making them responsible for your hypothetical safety.
Wow.
It violently shifts their focus from their agonizing internal terror to an external connection.
It's like throwing a bucket of ice water on a panic attack.
Yeah.
It forces a complete reset of the nervous system because they suddenly have to look outward instead of inward.
Exactly. It breaks the trance.
But, and I know what you're probably thinking as you listen to this, that's a fantastic psychological parlor trick for an absolute crisis. But I cannot realistically look my coworker Dave in the eye and say, I will die first when he forgets to restock the printer paper.
No, and you absolutely shouldn't. That specific, intense script is reserved purely for the most extreme, literal, kill me SOS signals where someone is entirely unmoored from reality.
Good to clarify that.
But the underlying structural principle of that script, breaking the expected pattern, refusing the emotional extortion, and shifting the focus from internal shame to shared connection is something we can adapt and apply to much more common everyday situations.
Which is exactly what we need to figure out. How do we rewrite the script for the future?
Yeah.
Knowing how to pivot an extreme existential crisis is incredible.
Yeah.
But how do we handle the more common everyday scenarios of extreme guilt without letting the relationship quietly crumble?
Because that unspoken resentment will ruin a relationship over time.
The text gives us exact scripts for this. Let's look at two specific, common scenarios and the precise mechanics of how to navigate them.
Let's return to scenario A, which we explored earlier. The free offer.
The restaurant manager.
Right. As we discussed at length, silently accepting the I'll make it free offer is highly dangerous because it builds their hidden guilt, establishes an unbalanced power dynamic, and creates that silent pressure that traps you.
It forces you to accept an emotional debt along with the free meal or the free service. So what is the mechanical fix? How do we accept the apology because we still need the mistake acknowledged without taking on the toxic debt?
The linguistic strategy here is a pivot of time and commitment. When they say, I will make this completely free to make up for it, the text suggests your script should be a variation of this. You will make it free. I understand. Please do so this time. In exchange, let me make my next reservation with you right now.
In exchange, let me make my next reservation with you right now.
Yes.
Well, let's really put that sentence under the microscope. Why does that specific combination of words diffuse the bomb?
It is brilliant because it effectively satisfies both competing psychological needs in the room simultaneously. First, it explicitly accepts the apology by accepting the free offer. Please do so this time. This validates their intense feelings of remorse.
What you need to do, otherwise they keep pushing.
Exactly. You aren't fighting them on their desperate desire to make amends, which would only make them push harder. But the true magic, the psychological jujitsu, happens in the second half of the sentence. By immediately insisting on booking the next reservation, you instantly, tangibly secure the future of the relationship.
Ah, I see the lever moving there. You are addressing the core terror.
The underlying fear.
Right, the underlying primal fear of every chronic over-apologizer is abandonment. Their brain is telling them, I made a mistake, therefore I am flawed, Therefore, you will realize I am useless and you will abandon me.
And by booking the next appointment or locking in the next interaction, you are proving with concrete action that the relationship is not dead. You're communicating your mistake was an event, it was not a fatal blow to our connection.
You are giving them the relief that they haven't ruined things forever.
Precisely. You are taking all of the frantic, anxious energy they were pouring into punishing themselves for the past, and you are actively redirecting it into a concrete, hopeful action in the future.
That's amazing.
You neutralize the emotional debt before it can settle. You let them pay for the mistake today, but you promise them a clean slate tomorrow. It is a profoundly empathetic intervention that is cleverly masked as a simple, pragmatic business transaction.
That is incredibly actionable. You can apply that to almost anything. If a graphic designer messes up a logo and offers a massive refund, you say, I appreciate the refund on this project, thank you. Let's look at the calendar and schedule our kickoff for the next campaign.
It instantly stops the bleeding.
Okay, let's move to scenario B. This one is notoriously difficult to handle because there is nothing to push back against. It's the scenario of the silent treatment.
The freeze response.
Right, but we aren't talking about the angry, manipulative silent treatment where someone is punishing you. We are talking about when someone is so overwhelmed by their own mistake, so entirely consumed by their own guilt, that they literally lose their words. They freeze, they shut down completely and just stare at the floor.
This is an incredibly delicate, fragile, psychological state. When someone shuts down in the face of their own failure, the natural, knee-jerk instinct of the other person is to lean in and aggressively interrogate.
You want to fix the awkwardness.
Right, so you start firing questions. What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? We have to figure this out. Just tell me what happened. Say something.
I am absolutely guilty of doing exactly that, and it never works. It feels like you are trying to throw a rope down a well to pull them up, but really you're just standing at the top of the hole screaming down at them.
And screaming down the hole only echoes and amplifies their internal terror. The interrogator thinks they are helping, but they are actually increasing the psychological threat level. The strategy here is radical patience.
Radical patience.
The conceptual script provided by the sources for this dynamic is to tell them, I will become an attractive person that you will want to talk to, so please wait for me.
Okay, let's pause and translate this. Because if we are honest, phrasing it exactly like that, I will become an attractive person that you will want to talk to, sounds a bit like dialogue from a translated romance novel.
It is a bit theatrical for casual conversation.
Yeah, if my buddy forgets to buy the concert tickets, realizes it, and completely freezes in silent guilt, I am not going to look at him and say, I will become an attractive person for you to speak with.
Yeah.
We have to understand the underlying psychological mechanism here so we can adapt it to our actual everyday voices. What is the active ingredient in that incredibly poetic phrase?
The active ingredient is the total removal of performance pressure combined with taking the blame for the silence upon yourself. Let's analyze the silence. In this specific context, the silence is driven by the sheer terror of speaking and making things worse.
They're terrified.
They are paralyzed by the fear of your judgment. They believe that any word that comes out of their mouth will just dig the hole deeper and confirm your hatred of them.
Right. They are in full play dead mode. If I don't move, the predator won't see me.
Exactly. The freeze response. So rushing them with questions, why are you so quiet, is like shining a harsh, blinding interrogation spotlight on someone who is desperately trying to hide in the shadows. It adds immense, suffocating pressure.
It makes it so much worse.
The mechanism behind the script, I will become an attractive person you want to talk to, is entirely about taking that harsh spotlight off of them and turning it onto yourself.
Oh, I see the reversal. You are basically communicating. The reason you aren't talking right now isn't because you are broken or stupid or failure.
Correct.
The reason you aren't talking is because I haven't done a good enough job of creating a safe environment yet.
You are voluntarily taking the blame for the awkward silence.
Which instantly relieves them of the burden of fixing it.
You are absorbing the tension for them. You are sending a clear neurological signal of safety. Take your time. You are not required to perform for me right now. I am going to work on my own patience, and I am going to work on being a safe, non-judgmental space. Whenever you are ready to step into that space, I will be here.
So how do we say that normally?
To adapt this to a casual, modern setting, you simply deploy the mechanics without the poetry. You say something like, hey, there's absolutely no rush to figure this out right now. Let's just take a breath. I'm going to go grab a coffee and let us both cool off. And whenever you're ready to chat about how we fix this, I'm right here.
That is a masterclass in de-escalation.
Uh-huh.
And if we look closely, both of these linguistic tricks, booking the next reservation to secure the timeline and explicitly giving them the space to be silent without pressure, rely heavily on one central unifying philosophy from our sources.
Which is shifting the focus entirely away from the past failure.
Right. And relentlessly anchoring the relationship toward a shared future. Which brings us to the final, most profound, and probably most challenging part of our deep dive today.
The concept of the container.
Yes, building the container. This is where the psychology becomes a discipline. The premise is stark. Never, ever rehash past mistakes. Do not dwell on the autopsy of the failure.
You can't live in the past.
Instead, you must continuously paint a picture of a viable, bright future. The text states that the psychological reality is that the exact moment people can clearly see hope in their future, they immediately begin to let go of their toxic, obsessive attachment to their past failures.
It is a fundamental truth of human neurobiology and resilience. We cannot rewrite history. You cannot change the absolute fact that a failure occurred.
A typo happened.
Right. The typo was published, the coffee was spilled, the deadline was blown, the trust was momentarily broken. That data point is fixed permanently in the past. However, the meaning of that failure is entirely fluid.
And the words of those around the person can entirely change that meaning.
Exactly. The words, the reactions, and the posture of the people surrounding the person who failed will entirely dictate what that event means. A failure can either be cemented to mean I am fundamentally flawed and unworthy, or it can be shaped to mean I learned a painful, necessary lesson that will make our future collaborations significantly stronger.
And if you are the person on the receiving end of the apology, you are the one holding the pen. You are writing the meaning of their failure.
That's a lot of power.
It is. But to do that effectively, to actually have the power to rewrite the meaning of someone else's shame, you have to possess a certain emotional architecture. You have to develop what the text refers to as your container or a capacity.
The Japanese concept often used in these psychological frameworks is utsuwa, which translates roughly to capacity or the vessel.
We need to spend some real time here because this isn't just a quick tip. What does it actually mean, practically and physically, to build and hold this emotional capacity?
To possess utsuwa, this deep capacity, requires taking a highly specific, very difficult intermediate stance when someone fails you. It is the ability to hold competing truths.
What does that look like?
It is described as warmly and softly watching over the person in their moment of failure. You are carefully avoiding the two most common, easiest reactions. You are neither harshly blaming them and attacking their character, which immediately triggers their defensive self-denial and shame spirals, nor are you completely ignoring their mistake and saying, it's fine, whatever.
Because ignoring it leaves them feeling unmoored, invisible, and deeply anxious that you are secretly harboring resentment.
Exactly. It is the ultimate tightrope walk. You have to acknowledge the reality of the error without condemning the soul of the person who made it.
And there is another profound concept paired with this container in the notes. It is called yorisoi.
Yes, yorosoi, which translates to a specific kind of snuggling close or drawing near. But in psychological context, it is about your physical and emotional orientation to the problem.
So it's not literal snuggling.
No. It means consciously choosing to stand beside the person, looking together at the problem out in front of you, rather than standing across the table from them, pointing a finger directly at their chest.
Standing beside them instead of across from them.
Yes. This specific kind of proximity, this yorisoi, combined with the emotional capacity of the utsuwa, creates a highly secure environment. It allows the person to safely expose their weakness, their incompetence, and their shame.
And the absolute key to their recovery is being allowed to show that weakness without being punished for it.
That is the only way they move past the extreme guilt and the endless apologies.
Okay, I have to stop and push back here. Because while this sounds incredibly beautiful in theory, in reality it sounds completely exhausting.
It does sound like a lot of work.
Being this perfectly emotionally regulated, never getting visibly mad when someone massively inconveniences you, never rolling your eyes at their dramatic apologies, never taking the easy way out by just saying forget it and ignoring the problem, but instead always perfectly, patiently guiding them to a bright future while softly watching over them. That sounds nearly impossible for a normal person.
It requires a master level of emotional maturity.
Is the underlying message here that we all need to meditate on a mountain for a decade and become Zen monks just to handle a coworker who won't stop apologizing for jamming the copier?
It is an entirely fair critique. When you lay out the mechanics of emotional regulation, it does sound like a monumental, almost superhuman task. But the reality of this psychology offers immense reassurance right at the moment you feel most inadequate.
Okay, I'm ready for the reassurance.
The framework directly addresses this feeling of not being evolved enough to hold this space. It asserts a profound truth. If you are interested in this dynamic at all, if you have the curiosity to examine why people hurt, and if you are listening to this deep dive trying to understand the mechanics of empathy, you already possess the necessary capacity. You already have the container.
Wait, really? Just the mere act of caring enough to analyze the interaction means the capacity is there.
Yes, because the desire to understand someone else's pain, the willingness to look past your own immediate valid annoyance at their frantic over-apologizing to see the terrified, insecure person hiding underneath that act of empathy is the container.
Wow, that's powerful.
The container isn't a magical state of permanent zen where you never feel annoyed. The container is simply the intention to prioritize the relationship over the momentary friction. You have the vessel. It merely takes conscious practice to wield it effectively under pressure.
That fundamentally reframes the whole challenge. It's not about achieving a state of emotional perfection where you never feel frustrated. It's about having the core intention to be a safe arbor, even when you are frustrated.
Exactly. The frustration is human. What you do with the frustration is where the capacity lies. And to anchor this idea of how we build this capacity over time, there is a wonderful grounding metaphor in the text.
Let's hear it.
It relies on two simple proverbs. Rain hardens the ground, and sun hardens the ground.
Meaning that the soil of our character requires both the storms and the heat to become a solid foundation.
Yes. Your capacity, your utsua, wasn't built by reading a textbook. It was built by your own experiences. The painful, devastating failures where you felt unbearable shame, the rain, and the moments of profound grace and forgiveness you've received the sun.
It's all about lived experience. Think back to your own life. Think back to the specific people who acted as your umbrella in the pouring rain or your sun on a freezing cold, isolating day. Think of the mentors, the friends or the partners who absolutely refused to judge you when you were spiraling in your own extreme self-denial.
We all have those people etched into our memory. The ones who didn't try to fix us, didn't yell at us, but just firmly sat with us in the dirt when we felt entirely worthless.
And the ultimate goal of all this psychological decoding, the entire reason we dissect these microinteractions, learn these specific counterintuitive scripts, and study the dark, hidden power dynamics of guilt, is to recognize that it is now your turn.
It's our turn to be the umbrella.
You have survived the rain and the sun, and you have built the capacity. It is your turn to be that umbrella or that sun for someone else. The ultimate psychological posture is to aggressively wish for the happiness and growth of the person in front of you, regardless of their age, their status, or their relation to you.
Which changes everything.
By understanding the terrified dark side of their relentless apologies, you gain the profound ability to lead them back to the light.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today on this deep dive. We started with a very common, very uncomfortable feeling, trying to figure out why someone crying and saying, "I'm sorry," over and over makes us feel so incredibly heavy, trapped, and vaguely guilty.
It really is a suffocating feeling.
And we learn the mechanics of how a simple apology can shift from a healthy bridge of repair into a suffocating wall, forcing the injured party to abandon their grievance and become a caretaker.
We decoded the hidden blades and the subtle power dynamics, uncovering how extreme self-sacrifice and offers to make it free actually function as a silent pressure.
Buying our silence.
Right, we saw how they act as a subconscious tool for controlling the relationship and purchasing the injured party's silence. We explored the terrifying SOS signals of extreme self-denial phrases like, "just kill me."
And we unpack the psychology of breaking that script by refusing to let life itself be used as a cheap bargaining chip.
And we broke down the practical everyday tools. We learned the absolute necessity of booking the next reservation to secure the future and neutralize the fear of abandonment.
And how to handle the silent treatment.
We learned the mechanics of the silent treatment and how to take the spotlight off the paralyzed person by voluntarily taking the blame for the silence, promising to become a safe, attractive space for them to eventually speak into.
We learned what it means to build a container, to stand beside someone rather than across from them, and to be the umbrella and the sun.
It is a profound, life-altering shift in perspective. The next time someone starts relentlessly over-apologizing to you, you do not have to feel cornered or suffocated.
You have the tools now.
You possess the analytical tools to look past the overwhelming volume of their frantic words. You can see the frightened, spiraling, deeply insecure person underneath the performance, and instead of hitting them with a wall of your own guilt or frustration, you can consciously choose to offer them a bridge to a shared, secure future.
It changes the entire architecture of how we interact with vulnerable people. But before we wrap up this incredibly deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on.
A parting thought for our listeners.
This builds directly on the heavy psychology we've just unpacked, but it flips the mirror around. We spent this entire time analyzing how to handle other people who over-apologize.
Right.
But if the source material shows us that over-apologizing is often a subconscious attempt to manage the other person's emotions, to extract reassurance, and to control the relationship through a display of extreme guilt, what does it actually mean when we are the ones doing the over-apologizing?
That is the uncomfortable question we all have to face.
Next time you find yourself aggressively typing, "I am so incredibly sorry," with 3 exclamation points in an email over a very minor everyday delay, I want you to stop, take your hands off the keyboard, look at the screen, and ask yourself a very hard question.
What's the question?
Are you genuinely apologizing to repair a harm you caused them? Or are you secretly, subconsciously just trying to manipulate the receiver into telling you that you are still a good person?